he's in this period of things kind of falling apart for the next 6 months, but then a year later he's going to be back in the spotlight again. But it might be in a different... Andrew Yang, can he win the Democratic nomination? That's what we're talking about today through Vedic Astrology. I'm Thor Sandalwood, and we're going to take a look at Andrew Yang's chart. And the reason I really want to take a look at Andrew Yang is because I was able to watch a lot of his interviews lately, some of what he said in the Democratic debates in the last couple months. His message is very futuristic. He's actually seeing very far in the future. And as an astrologer, I study the future. That's essentially what I do. And I'm hearing Andrew Yang talk about these problems that people are not really aware of yet. So one of the problems that Americans in general, and also people all around the world, are not waking up to is that a lot of the jobs we have today are going to be gone in 10 or 20 years. Automation is going to take over almost everything. We're going to have self-driving cars, so no more Uber jobs. We're going to have self-driving trucks. All those truck drivers around most of the states in the U.S. are going to be laid off. And even things like going to fast food, you're just going to order up on a tablet and essentially an automated robot will make your hamburger for you. So this is a problem that the society has to discuss. I don't see a lot of the politicians addressing this issue. They're still locked in this old mindset of if we just cut taxes or we increase taxes on these people and we just need to produce jobs. Well, in the future, the concept of a job is not going to be the same as today, and we really have to look at that issue. What are we going to do with all those people that have been truck drivers most of their lives, have a high school education, they're middle-aged? Are we going to train them to be coders? And so, in a way, this is a problem that we really have to look at as a society. What kind of society do we want? That's what we need to ask. So Andrew Yang comes from the tech industry, and he saw right away that there was this issue that automation, AI, all these things are going to be taking away all these traditional jobs that people have. And so he has his answer is the UBI, the Universal Basic Income, of a freedom dividend that they give to all U.S. citizens. I think it's $1,000 a month. And what he's trying to address is this issue that our whole economy is going to be shifting. And so what are people going to do to support themselves? A lot of people are going to be, oh my gosh, people are just going to take the universal basic income and be lazy and not do anything. But the issue is we can't get locked into that old style of thinking that, you know, you can just go get a job at a factory down the street or at a fast food place or the little factory in your town, and that's going to support you, because that's not the way of the future. We see that the malls are closing all over the country. That's becoming a dinosaur industry. Everyone's going to Amazon and online retailers. So this is just an interesting thing, and I think he's ahead of his time. So I got his chart pulled up right here. We have him at January 13th, 1975, and we have the birth time at 6:20. I found that on an astrological database where they actually talked to one of his campaign managers who gave them the birth time. So it seemed pretty strong birth time. So he's a Sagittarius ascendant. Sagittarius to me is the sign of like being religious or having some strong value system that you identify with. And so Sagittarians can be very holy people on one side, and then they can also become your radicalized, diehard, Bible thumping kind of people on the other side of the spectrum. So it's kind of like that whole religious spectrum. And what I noticed in his chart, he has the Sun and Mars in his first house, which definitely that's a really strong combination to have as someone becoming a politician and announcing your ideas. The Sun in the first house is the ninth lord of Leo. And so you have the ninth lord in the first house. So what does that mean? It means that he identifies a lot with his ideology, his higher beliefs, his philosophies. And now he's trying to speak this wisdom out to the world. And the world, quite frankly, might not be ready to hear what he has to say, even though he's telling the truth. People are not ready to hear it. He's also got Mars in the first house, which indicates he's probably pretty athletic. He's probably when he was in the tech industry, he was one of those go-getter types that, you know, he could probably march right up a corporate hierarchy pretty fast. But I think he's out of the tech industry now. He's running for president. Pretty awesome. Okay, so second house, we have Moon, Mercury, and Venus. And so with the Moon, this talks a lot about his family situation when he was growing up. Really represents, you know, a family that was very centered around mom. So I don't know his upbringing, but I could assume that his mom is what shaped his values and what he believes. He also has Venus there, so Moon, Mercury, Venus. Sometimes in a man's chart, any planets that are with Venus can indicate multiple marriages, because Venus is the Karaka for marriage. And so if there's planets that are conjunct that planet, it can indicate marriages in the future. So Jupiter is in the third house, and that is, let's see, fourth lord and first lord. So, you know, the third house I usually think of as like announcements and co-workers and teamwork. Very team oriented, I would say. He's very much about his team of people around him. So that's actually good to have as a leader. You know, you're bringing your team around you and they're helping you. So he's probably very much involved in his actual campaign operations that he's doing right now. We're not going to go through every house, every planet. That just kind of gives me a little brief breakdown. First house, second house. And so now we really want to look at is what dasha is Andrew Yang currently in. Is he in a dasha that could succeed? Could it push him to the Democratic nomination, or maybe even becoming president one day? Right now, Andrew Yang is in Jupiter Mahadasha. So Jupiter is a time of expansion, of growth. It rules his first house and his fourth house. So this is a lot about the self. I mean, that's why he's running for politics, because first house is all about your identity coming to the forefront, and his son's in the first house. It's like, hey, everybody, look at me. I'm here. I'm charismatic. I'm in the spotlight. And so that's what he's doing right now. It's pretty amazing. And right now, this current moment, he's in Venus Bhukti, because Venus is the Karaka of relationships, of money and finance and luxury. And not just romantic relationships, but contractual relationships that we build with people. So it could even be business deals that he's making with people. There's an increase of that. And Venus being in the second house, this is a great time for Andrew Yang to expand those treasuries for his campaigning. Right now, and that's what I believe he's doing, because he qualified for the September debate. And so he's expanding those campaign treasuries. It's a great time for that. Let's see. Okay. Venus is, let's see, 6th lord and 11th lord. So Venus is the lord of his 6th house and 11th house. Now, if you guys watched any of my prior political videos, usually being in a time of either the 6th house, the 8th house, or the 12th house being involved, those Dashtana houses, is usually a difficult time for someone. And so Venus, he's going to be in Jupiter Mahadasha, Venus Bhukti, all the way till December 2019. And what I see is Ketu's also in his 6th house. So we have to look at Venus as a Karaka. He's building relationships. It is money. However, and it's in the 2nd house, but it's lord of the 6th house and it's lord of the 11th house. And then so Venus is also activating the planets that exist in its own houses. So Ketu is also being activated. And Ketu is the Karaka of things getting cut off. It's the Karaka of abandonment, of endings. And so for the next 6 months, because the 6 lords involved and Ketu's involved, I think Andrew Yang will probably drop out of the race by the end of this year. I don't think we're going to see Andrew Yang get to next summer in this election. It looks like he's going to be probably bowing out within the next 6 months. Unfortunately, because he has a lot of great ideas. Like I said, he's ahead of his time. This is it's a little unfortunate, but I think that because he has a great first house, he's got malefics in the first house, but those malefics can also be very positive in giving you all that willpower, drive, determination, and charisma you need to move up the political ladder. So also another thing I wanted to look at Andrew Yang, because I always find it interesting when I find out somebody's married, because the marriage is such a strong part of who you are. It's a strong part of your identity. And people forget that. It's not just Andrew Yang. It's Andrew Yang and his wife Evelyn. They're like, once you get married, you're both combining each other's karma in life. So it's Andrew and Evelyn Yang. So that's why I like to look at the marriage houses. We see the Saturn's in the 7th house, and a lot of people might say, well, that's kind of bad having a malefic in the 7th house, because Saturn is a pretty bad hombre, so to speak. But here's the issue. Saturn is also the planet of endurance, longevity, and things just lasting a very, very long time. So I would not be surprised if we find out Andrew Yang and Evelyn, they have a very, very long marriage, because Saturn, even though it can cause some problems in the marriage, it also brings a lot of longevity to that marriage. And we also have Jupiter in the 3rd house, which is aspecting that 7th house of marriage, which makes Jupiter is the planet of expansion, of increasing, of optimism. So just having that aspect from Jupiter to help that marriage house is definitely beneficial for the marriage. And what I found interesting is we can also count 7 houses from his moon to see how his emotional relationship with his wife is. And so if we count 7 houses from the 2nd house, because that's his moon's in the 2nd house, it's represented by the 8th house of Cancer. So the 8th house is interesting because the 8th house is where a lot of secrecy comes from. And I was trying to look up a lot of things about Andrew Yang and his wife and his marriage. And he talked about how his wife stays at home with their autistic son. And I was trying to find any more information online about how did they meet, when did they decide to get married. I do have a marriage date, but there's really no bio I found of how they met and really what their private life is beyond just we know that they have a couple children together and that the wife stays at home and takes care of the autistic son, which is very admirable, by the way. So the 8th house deals with things staying secret, things being private. So there's a lot of things we do not know about Evelyn Yang that the public doesn't know. The only thing I was able to read about her was apparently she was an executive for L'Oreal, the cosmetic brand. And then they got married, and then she's a stay-at-home mom now, but that's all we know. Also, the 8th house represents money through the spouse. She could have been very helpful with the joint marital assets. You know, she was a former executive. Now she's staying at home. Maybe they both agreed on it. But she's going to be staying out of the public spotlight because the 8th house is secrecy, things we don't know. Maybe she's just one of those kind of people. Like, she's supporting him, but hey, don't get me involved in this stuff because I don't really want to be in the spotlight. I don't want to be the center of attention. So guys, my prediction is I believe Andrew Yang will drop out by the end of this year, 2019. If he doesn't drop out by then, I just see it being very hard for the next 6 months. I think he's only at like 1 or 2% in the polls. And then he also has he's in this period where the 6th house is being activated. K2's in the 6th house. And so there's just a lot of activity of problems amounting, maybe some debts having to do with the campaign. Like maybe he can't raise enough money. Even though Venus is the Karaka of money, the 6th house with K2 being there, it might be that, you know, he just cuts it off because the campaign, he just can't support the campaign. And if you're at only 2% polling, you know, there is a point where you have to just give up. But the thing I will say about Andrew Yang, he's ahead of his time. The philosophy that he's talking about is things that this whole world, we're all going to have to discuss together what kind of society we want. Because we can't keep operating the way things used to be. As things globalize, as a lot of our jobs get taken over by automation and AI, it's going to be, okay, so what do we want to do as a people? Is it just going to be 1% uber rich and everyone else is just dirt poor? Or are we going to have to change the way we think about money, our economy, everything, so that we can have a society that's prosperous, where people are able to fulfill their dreams, where people are able to pursue their interest and things like that? That's really the type of future I would love to see. And one more thing about his future, there is potential for Andrew Yang to win some sort of political seat. I don't think he's going to make the Democratic nomination, but especially after February of 2020, he's going to be in Jupiter's sun, which is a great time politically. So I wouldn't be surprised within the next couple years we find out Andrew Yang either runs for a House race or a Senate race, or gets involved in politics in some other fashion. That's what might happen with Andrew Yang, because he's in this period of things kind of falling apart for the next 6 months, but then a year later he's going to be back in the spotlight again in a different way. It might not be as the Democratic nominee, even maybe just being a mayor. We know one of the candidates is mayor of South Bend, Indiana. So he can always still work at these levels, but unfortunately the presidential election only happens once every 4 years. So he definitely, I think we're going to see Andrew Yang still in the spotlight. His ideas, everything he's saying is true, and it's going to start coming out more and more, and he could actually get involved more in politics. Thank you so much for watching. If you like my video, please give it a thumbs up, and please subscribe to my channel. Also, if you're interested in a private reading, please email me at thor.sandalwood@gmail.com. Bye-bye.